Birdsong and This is Queer Stories, where we talk about everything from film to TV, novels and video games, and even sometimes current events, politics, and history. So today I want to tackle a more serious topic, and that is the protests that are going on right now in Poland. So this video is not going to be for everyone. If you're more interested in my lighthearted content, you can go ahead and skip this video. But I highly encourage you to watch it because I think it's really important, if we're all one global community, that we know what's going on with our brothers and sisters in other countries. So you might be wondering, why would I make a video about Poland? First of all, it's very dear to my heart. I have been to Poland several times on business, and my experiences in Poland were always so incredibly positive. I met some of the nicest people I've ever met when I was in Poland. I had a taste of the culture that I thought was amazing, and I really feel for what's going on over there right now. But I'm not Polish, and so I don't presume to speak for the Polish people. The reason I'm making this video is to help raise awareness and spread the message of what's going on. I'm going to be linking quite a few links in the description. You'll be able to see a link, first of all, to somewhere where you can find out a lot more about what's going on with the protests and how you could potentially help. I'm also going to link a documentary film that was made about the protests, and I'm also going to include some historical links to where you can find some of the information I'm going to be referencing in this video. So first of all, what's going on in Poland right now? So basically, there have been several pride marches that have happened recently. One of them was the very first ever pride march to be organized in a city called Białystok, and correct me if I pronounce that wrong. So when you look at what happened in this city, you saw a lot of anger and hate towards the people that were participating in this pride parade. There was chanting, violence, burning of the rainbow flag, and I'll include a little bit of footage here for you to get an idea of what happened.
Ale pani ma pensję. Ale to prowokacja. Proszę odejść, to naokoło idzie.
Mężczyźni wielokrotnie częściej molestują dzieci. Aby je gwałcić, promują w szkołach seks edukację.
Idź sobie z tą kurwą jedna! Idź tam ich człowieku! Policja nie jest naszym wrogiem! Dewiantów tutaj nie dopuścimy! Nie dajcie się sprowokować w żaden sposób! Zapluć na dziadów, kurwa!
So this isn't the only place where we have seen a lot of anti-LGBT sentiment in Poland. Even in Warsaw itself, they had a rainbow arch that they had put up for Pride, and it got burned down once, rebuilt, and burned down again. So there's obviously a lot of anti-LGBT sentiment happening in Poland right now. Something that's interesting to note is that at the Białystok Pride Parade, there was a couple that actually brought explosives to the event, perhaps with the intention of actually hurting people. Luckily, they were stopped before they had a chance to use those explosives, and each one of them was sentenced to 12 months in jail as a result of bringing those explosives on site. But it's extremely scary, the idea that explosions could happen, that people could get killed. We've seen that happen in various different places around the world. It's not unheard of. And so I think there is a lot of fear going on right now within this community in Poland. So the other interesting thing to note is that there's no law against hate speech towards LGBT plus people in Poland. Okay, so let's dive into some of the things that have happened recently in the country. They have elected a government that is a very conservative government that is overtly anti-LGBT. So recently, some of the things that have passed within the country is, first of all, they've passed something called the family card, which, if you're familiar with what happened in California, is very similar to Proposition 8. So basically what it does is it defines marriage as between a man and a woman, and then it uses family values as a way to spread intolerance. It also specifically prohibits the adoption of children by homosexual couples. Some of the additional things that you'll find in the family card are prohibiting the propagation of LGBT ideology, as well as protecting what children can learn in school. So even more scary than the family card, which is sort of dressed in this icing of being something that protects children, we've also seen various different regions within the country define LGBT-free zones. These are certain areas in the country, they actually put up signs and label them as LGBT-free zones. And even though they're not actually doing anything about that, so they're not arresting people and moving them out, it's still very scary. I can't imagine, myself living over there and being like, wow, they really don't want me to live here. Like, they just don't want me to exist. So that is pretty scary. There's one Polish newspaper that even recently included within their newspaper an image of a rainbow flag with a cross through it and LGBT-free zone written around the outside. A lot of people even consider that since the family card passed, that the entire country could effectively be called an LGBT-free zone. So that's politics and legal stuff going on. But what about the people on the ground, right? Like, how do people feel every day as they walk around in the street? Generally, when you look at a survey that was done in December of 2019, what you'll see is that roughly 50% of people approve of civil unions for homosexual couples, but 64.6% of all people are against gay marriage, and over 73% of the population opposes adoption by gay couples. So I don't think it's possible for us to talk about gay rights in anywhere in Europe without making a reference back to what happened in Nazi Germany and in World War II. It's been less than 100 years since this happened, and Poland was ground zero for concentration camps within the Nazi regime. So I think it's really relevant for us to just rehash some of the history of what happened to gay people in World War II. Generally speaking, what happened was, starting in 1933, Nazi Germany declared that being gay was against the law. After that, gay clubs were shut down and people were arrested. We know that roughly 100,000 men were arrested for being homosexual. 50,000 of those people were officially sentenced, made to wear their pink triangle, and sent to concentration camps. And somewhere between 5,000 to 15,000 of those people were executed. If that wasn't bad enough, the torture that they endured in the concentration camps, even those that survived, is horrific. If you want to know more about that, you can check out the links that I'm going to include in the description. They talk about it on Wikipedia. I don't even want to repeat it here. It turns my stomach. And then, in addition to torture in the camps, they also sent a lot of homosexual people off to be experimented upon so that they could see whether or not they could cure homosexuality. And it didn't all stop after the Nazis were ousted from Germany. Years after the Nazis were gone, people were still in jail for being gay, and there's at least one case that they reference in Wikipedia, but I'm sure there are more, where a man was released from jail only when he agreed to be castrated first. So this is serious stuff, right? We're not talking about things that were just mild disapprovals of gay people. We're talking about people being executed, tortured, and it's less than 100 years ago. In comparison, when we look at what's happening now, we see the hate speech, we see the violence, and we see the general will of the populace to restrict things like marriage and adoption. But I think we have to remember that we only have rights so long as we fight for those rights. And just as easily as they're given to us, they can be taken away. When regimes change and when politicians are elected into office with more conservative values, this can sometimes happen. Why is this happening specifically in Poland, you might wonder? One of the things that we need to know about Poland is that the Catholic Church is still heavily involved. In 2003, the Catholic Church really lobbied to make sure that they could get the decision that they wanted not to add LGBT protections to the discrimination clauses in the labor code. They tried again in 2007 to pass some protections for LGBT people, and they were successful in getting some protections, specifically for the workplace, but there are no protections when we look at things like Social Security, healthcare, education, access to goods and services, and hate speech, like we started talking about in the beginning of the video. As a really extreme example, as recently as July 2020, just a few weeks ago, IKEA itself is being sued by the Polish government because they dismissed an employee that used homophobic language, even going so far as to say that gays should be put to death. So the Polish government is defending the right of the homophobic person to insinuate that gay people should be killed. So I don't want this entire video to be negative, so let's talk about some of the progress that there has been in a positive direction. First of all, same-sex activity itself was legal in Poland since 1932. So that's actually a pretty long time. It's longer than a lot of countries. Legal gender changes have happened in this country since the 1960s. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual people can serve openly in the military. Right now, there is a bill on the table to ban conversion therapy. Gay and bisexual men have had the right to donate blood since 2005, which in a lot of countries today you still can't, since the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s. And then we also just see some general progress in terms of the acceptance that you see, particularly with young people that are in larger cities, so places like Warsaw and Krakow. So after learning about what's going on in Poland, you might be wondering if there's anything you can do to help. The very first link in the description will bring you to a page where you can learn more about the protests and what's going on in Poland, as well as find out how you can help. I would like to leave you with the words of a brave young lesbian woman who participated in the Pride marches. Her name is Hania S., and I will also include a link to her vlog in the description. So without further ado, here's a clip of some of her words.
Budziłam się z katem moralnym po połowie nieprzespanej nocy. Nie sądziłam, że po Marszu Równości w Białymstoku będę miała o czym mówić. To znaczy, myślałam, że będę mogła powiedzieć, że cieszę się, że w tym mieście odbył się pierwszy Marsz Równości, ale wydarzyła się tragedia, wydarzyło się, nie wiem, mnie to przeraża. To, ile w ludziach jest nienawiści do osób, które nikomu nie robią żadnej krzywdy. To, że chodzą tam ludzie z koszulkami ze swastyką i z white power. Mi to się przypomina po prostu wojnę, która, no to, co się działo i że najwyraźniej nie nauczyliśmy się tego, że... Wiecie, wśród tak wielu gatunków występuje homoseksualizm, więc jest to naturalne. No tylko w jednym homofobia. Chciałoby się powiedzieć, dobra, trzeba pakować manatki i szukać mieszkania w Londynie, Brukseli, Amsterdamie, whatever. Ja nie czuję się patriotką. Nie czuję się jakoś bardzo związana z moim krajem, moim narodem. Ale lubię to miejsce. Lubię tu żyć. Mam tu bliskich. Mam tu dom. Mam tu koty. Nie chcę stąd wyjeżdżać. Nie chcę odcinać się od tego miejsca. Nie chcę udawać, że nie jestem stąd. Bo jestem Polką, ale przede wszystkim jestem człowiekiem i należy mi się tutaj normalne życie, tak jak każdemu innemu. I chcę tu żyć. Chcę tu żyć z moją dziewczyną i nie bać się o to, że nam się coś stanie. Bo naprawdę w człowieku liczy się to, jakim jest człowiekiem. I tyle. Czy jest dobry? Jak traktuje innych ludzi, jak traktuje zwierzęta, jak traktuje przyrodę, planetę, środowisko, naturę. To jest ważne. Jaką energię wkłada do świata.
I think she is so incredibly brave because in this moment where a lot of people are saying we should leave Poland, they don't want us here, what she is saying is I love my country and I want to stay, this is my home, and I want to help to make it a better place. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you learned something today and that it might have sparked in you some interest in getting to know more about what's going on in Poland. Have a great day. Also, I want to let you guys know that if you want to support more content like this being created, you can subscribe to me on Patreon. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more video like this, then please subscribe.